Hi everybody. So I just wanted to come on and share a little bit more about some of how Satan used my trauma, it's a little bright, um, against me to keep me stuck in demonic bondage. So I think this is a really important topic of this time. So I just wanted to share kind of exactly how he did that. So, kind of going back to when I experienced the two back-to-back situations with narcissistic abuse, he had them back to back like that, so that I had very little like processing time or time to recuperation time. So he's really come after me hard in my life. I know that not everybody has experienced like this level of what I would call warfare. I now would refer to narcissistic abuse as warfare. And he really hit me hard with it, because he not only hit me with an ex-boyfriend, but then with a family member who I was stuck living with during COVID. And then I was just thinking about who I have to block from hearing this message, family members. But then after that, a roommate situation with someone who wasn't a partner or a family member, but with someone that was a roommate. Actually, I had two back-to-back roommate situations with two different narcissists moving to Florida. So I had like a whole string of these narcissistically abusive experiences, like one after another, almost like my life was becoming a study of narcissism in its various like forms, which I am really into psychology, and there's part of me that does like geek out over this topic, which is probably not a healthy thing, but I'm here to shed light on certain topics, and I know that that's part of my reason for being here, so why not, but it was interesting how these situations were positioned like back to back, so there was very little room for like healing and like recuperation, because I would say I'm a pretty strong person, but it was one thing to have like the 3-year relationship, but then to have that family situation and be trapped with this person for a whole year during COVID, with like very little outside influences to counteract that abuse. Then to kind of have all this division happening on Facebook, kind of at a time where I was like seeking healing and support from what I was going through, and a lot of my friends remember that time, and a lot of people were supportive of me, and I do want you to know that I'm really appreciative of that, and I recognize that. It's just, for whatever reason, it just really got like stuck. Like I really got stuck during that time. And I just posted something on how your trauma gets stuck, how you can get stuck in the past. And I know a lot of people have thought of me and associated me with being stuck in the past, and you're right. Like I experienced a level of trauma that was beyond what I could process at the time. I didn't have, as like aware as I am and emotionally intelligent as I am, I didn't have the tools, or probably mainly the support around me that I needed to get through those times, because no matter how like smart or wise I am, like without the support of like your peers, you can't really get through like these emotional wounds, especially when they're really deep. Because with my family member, this was affecting my very foundation, my relationship to my mother. Like the narcissist wasn't my mother, but it was affecting my relationship to my mother, and I'm an only child. Like, so that relationship is like foundational to me, and the enemy knew that. Like, one way that he will attack us is he will attack our foundation when he really wants to, sorry to say it, but take us out. And what I've really gained or learned from all this experience is like that the enemy's goal was to take me out during this time. And I know that for sure now, because following those experiences, I then developed PTSD, or complex PTSD, CPTSD, which is a form of PTSD that is formed by emotional abuse, versus like, you know, one traumatic incidence of like, say, like rape or going to war, which is also prolonged abuse. Like being in a war zone is a prolonged experience of like of trauma. So I wonder if that would be classified as CPTSD. But anyway, so it's interesting. Like, so during this time, we're kind of expanding our definition of like what constitutes as PTSD and what constitutes as trauma. And I think we're gaining more awareness that emotional abuse is one of those things, and specifically narcissistic abuse, which a lot of like light is being shed on as well in this time. You know, and thank goodness for that. But I guess what I was trying to get at is that, so the enemy had kind of situated all of these events back to back, these like traumatizing events like happen back to back, so that I had very little like space to breathe and to like process the experience and make sense of it all, you know, and get support. And so, and also something that comes from narcissistic abuse is like this immense amount of like shame, like because you're being treated like you're like the most worthless person, and all of the narcissist's own inner like self-loathing is being projected onto you. So you are then becoming like their punching bag, or they're like their garbage can. And so that was kind of happening to me, which makes it really hard for you to like reach out to people and ask for help, because if you know, you're not feeling worthy of that help, you're not feeling worthy of support by the time they're done with you, which is like really bad. Like it's really bad abuse, and anybody who knows about it or who's experienced it knows that. And to me, it comes straight out of the mouth of hell. It comes out straight out of like out of hell, yeah, out of Satan's agenda, which I did another video on, comparing narcissistic abuse and comparing the narcissist to Satan, who's like the father of the narcissist, or the ultimate narcissist. And so I think it's kind of neat that, like, you know, we're starting to see this come to light, like literally like come into light in this time. And I know like a lot of other Christians have experienced this as well. So that kind of gets me thinking. I have to slow down a little bit. I get still get a little bit of like anxiousness when I'm speaking. So pardon me if I get like too fast in my speaking, but yeah, so part of what was I saying? I like completely blinked out. Part of Satan's plan with I forgot where I was. So that also still happens. So like part of my narcissistic abuse, like what also came with that was like trauma, like real trauma to my brain. So like I would have, another reason that I like felt weird, funny reaching out to people is because like I was feeling like I was, you know, I was like well, it was embarrassing because I would be in conversations and I would just go blank, like my mind would just completely go blank, and I couldn't like string together like sentences and stuff, and my memory got really affected, to where like, yeah, I'd be in the middle of a sentence and then suddenly it's like it's gone, like it just completely like left me, you know. So it's a little bit about like of what just happened there, but I am healing, I am like coming out on the other side. But I think it's important that I share this with you guys because I've kept the severity of it from you, because it has been so hard to like admit to, that like I literally was like having a mental breakdown, like I literally was like losing it, you know. And that's a really tough thing to like admit to like your community or to like, you know, people you love. So but yeah, like I want to come out with that and just say like, yeah, like after all that narcissistic abuse, like I really got affected, and I was like really having a mental breakdown, and you know, like it was a serious thing. It's affected like every area of my life, and it's been hard to sustain work, like though I've had employment since being here, and I've been able to get back into like my passion and case management and psychology. Like I had to really fight through the PTSD in order to like to succeed and to live up to my potential, because I am very like I am like great in this field. I'm like, what's the word, I'm meant to be in the field of psychology. I'm meant to be in this field and like offering my gifts, but I was really being challenged by like my own PTSD to like perform. And I don't think there's enough like options for people who are going through trauma and like healing to kind of navigate the world, like, because it's, you know, it's still like looked down upon a little bit to get disability or like to just take time out from the world to like to heal. But we really need to recognize that like when you have complex trauma, it's like having like cancer. It's like having something really serious, and like you owe it to yourself to take that time out for yourself, and by like whatever means like necessary, and really like and take time to heal, you know, because because you're worth it, because your mental health is everything. Like we can't do anything without our mental health. It's like everything, you know. And I used to take that for granted, just how valuable like my brain was, like how valuable my just everyday, my functioning, my memory was until like this happened. And again, I'm sorry if I go too fast. Like this is just me like kind of I'm like self-regulating through sharing my story. So I appreciate like you listening and bearing with me. It's by no means going to be like perfect, because like I haven't shared a whole lot over the last few years because of the amount of like shame associated to like mental health, mental illness. And I am admitting to you now that I had mental illness and I had mental health issues that have lasted for like the last 3 or 4 years. And that's a lot of why I've been off Facebook, and a lot of why I have like separated myself, or just naturally kind of like faded out of community, I would say, and found myself on this Christian path. Like rather like, you know, Jesus found me on this path and has been like my main support and my everything on this path. But that's a lot of like why I kind of disappeared for a while, is because I was healing, and I was like, so every time I get on Facebook I just get so overstimulated and just couldn't mentally like keep up anymore. So that's why I took the time out, and I'm glad I'm able to like admit that to you now and share that with you. And I'm going to keep being honest with you and like about my journey, because if I'm going to be your friend, like I want you guys to know like what's going on with me. I know for a while I was like deeply involved in community, and like I would share everything about my life with you. So that is why I pretty much stopped and became a much more like private person. But I think some of that was for the best, and I think that God like wanted me to become more private and wanted me to focus more on myself and my own goals, and like to kind of like turn some of my energy, some of my like empathic energy back towards myself, so that I could start focusing on not only my healing but also like my goals, and to start like getting my own life together. Because I also at the peak of my trauma like was also just, I found myself to just have very little, I was very ungrounded, like what's the word, I was like coming out of a spiritual path. I was very ungrounded. I didn't have like, you know, my stable career. I didn't have like my 1-bedroom apartment that I have now. And my car and like things like that. Like I wasn't like stable in like the material world. I've always been very spiritual and like, you know, spent 7 years on my spiritual path, and so that's where my focus was. But God wanted to like bring me back to myself so that I could focus on like, what does Monica need? Like what do I need in my immediate surroundings to feel like complete and to feel taken care of and like whole. And so that's a lot of what I've been like focused on, and I think I've done a great job given the fact that I've also had PTSD. Like I've been fighting through that, but I've been, you know, I spent so much time with God and with the Holy Spirit that he really directed me in the ways of like ordering my life back together, and again like bringing my goals back and like showing me how to proceed and like not articulating the best. And that's something that I like am not that great at, but I'm not gonna let that like stop me from sharing, because I think you get better with experience versus like hiding from the camera or like hiding from speaking. So I'm just gonna speak like, you know, regardless. But yeah, I wanted to share a little bit about my experience and about my trauma with you. And I want to just continue being transparent, because I think that there are like real gems in this experience. And I know that I'm called to share on like mental health just because of like how severely it impacted me. And we are in a time when that's like a topic, the topic of conversation. And I think, or not the topic, but a topic of conversation, mental health. And I think that's for good reason, because I think before we've kind of separated like mental health as like a separate thing from like what's happening in society, like what's happening in our relationships, like that would lead to mental health issues. It's often like before the person would just kind of be singled out and like seen as the problem, seen as the one that just like needs to get medication or go see like that they need, you know, they need help, or it, versus like what was the system around them that created those symptoms in the person. Because I can't do that to myself. Like I can help, like I can definitely help do that to myself, but I'm not that powerful to do all that to myself, you know, like and I didn't have a mental health issue before the emotional abuse, so there's a connection there clearly, right? So these events are not like they're not like islands unto themselves like we would previously thought in the mental health like world and in the society in general. So I think it's definitely like key that we like start, you know, we continue to like shed light on what causes mental health issues. And we also see that like, because I think before we had the idea that like PTSD was so severe that like someone that had it could never like come back from it fully. Like, you know, we think of war veterans who have PTSD, and a lot of them do end up homeless and like on the streets and never able to fully recover, because it does so much damage to like every part of your life. And so I have so much compassion for like anybody with PTSD, because like I know that it's only by the grace of God that I was able to like walk myself through the process, and by the Holy Spirit by my side, and because I feel like there's like a inner healer in me that's always been there through all of my experiences. It's like this constant within me that's like kind of like looking from the outside and is like, this is what's happening, you know, like this is what you're experiencing. And it's like, oh, this healer part of me is like always talking. And so luckily like that part of me talked me through like my experience, and I'm really grateful. But I know that not everybody is so lucky to come through PTSD like unscathed, and actually end up like going deeper into it, and you know, it going into homelessness, it going into like worst case scenarios, and also schizophrenia. Like these are things that we've considered to be pretty severe in our society, that we've kind of like created a little bit of a division from, like that homeless person is like, it's like separate from me, that person with PTSD, the war veteran, is like separate from me somehow. Like I'm really glad that like that didn't happen to me, but you know, like man, like poor them, like now their whole life is going to be, you know, like messed up or whatever. But what's great is that we're like having a lot of breakthroughs in the area of like of PTSD and recovery, and a lot more like research has gone into like healing from trauma. And so it's really great that like, you know, that doesn't have to be like a life sentence anymore for people. And you know, I'm sure a lot of you have heard like about the VA, but they're really amazing when it comes to like trauma recovery, and have made so many breakthroughs for the soldiers. And I just think that's amazing. And there's more and more trauma recovery programs out there. A few that I love are like Irene Lyons. All her work on trauma recovery is amazing. There's the Crappy Childhood Fairy, who talks about healing from CPTSD. That's the Crappy Childhood Fairy. And then the other one was Irene Lyon. And then my friend does like the somatic, I'm forgetting the name, I'll mention it in another video, but she has a really awesome foundation all about like healing trauma. But I'll get the exact name so I don't like butcher it or anything. But yeah, but I'm grateful for these programs out there that are like that walk you through like the healing process, like step by step. And I can't say I've been perfect at following them, because I'm not usually that good at like following regimens, like although like God has gotten me a lot better with that and getting me a lot better in my routines, like I'm not by any means like perfect at it. And so, you know, like the information is out there, but do I like utilize it, you know, on a consistent basis? And the answer is not always, but I have a feeling like, but I try, you know. And I have a feeling like sharing my story is going to be another massive part of my healing. So I really just want to continue like sharing and getting it out there, because like this is where like my passion is. Like the other day when I apologized for being like negative on Facebook, like I kind of like the next day I thought about it and I was like, you know what, like if I don't talk about like these wounds, like I feel like I just kind of like a big part of my passion, a big part of like what gives me like life and energy in this time, because it is my passion right now, is speaking about this. And like the time is now to speak about it. So I'm gonna speak about it, you know, like because like, you know, I don't think we're only meant to speak about like the positive things that happen to us and like all the beauty. Like I think a lot of beauty comes out of the hardships that we go through, and a lot of like lessons come out of those hardships. And so we don't want to skip those over. Like I want to be an example of someone who like doesn't skip that over and who milks the experience for everything that it's worth. And I think that's what we're meant to do when we have things come up in our lives. Like let's actually like milk that for what it's worth, and really get the gems out of it, you know. I think that that's what God intends for us to do. Sometimes like we think that things are a lot like harder, heavier, harder to overcome than they really are, if we were to like allow ourselves to really just go into them and feel them and speak about them. Then we would come out on the other side of that, you know. And that's part of like the feminine intelligence, is like understanding that like emotions aren't that scary, and like when you allow yourself to feel, like you will actually like find some resolution. You're not meant to stay trapped forever in any one feeling. It's like feelings have a resolution, you know, just like everything does. And so like allowing the full cycle of the dark to allow to like have its say, then allows you to come back into the light like in a more like full way, versus like when dark starts to come up, if you're like, no, like go away, like I don't want to see you, and then it's like okay, and then like it has to go hide, and then it's like just staying back there like hiding, and you're trying to like go on with your life pretending like it's not right there, like, you know, in the background. So that's kind of what I was doing with my trauma, and like I just don't want to do that anymore. I want to like move forward, and moving forward is not just a choice. Like, we talk about moving forward and on the Christian path a lot. We talk about, like, you know, not looking back, because like when Lot's wife looks back, she turns into sand. But you know, I think what's not mentioned there is like what would keep us from, what would allow us to move forward to where we don't have to look back, you know. Yes, I believe that moving forward is a masculine principle in itself, and so the masculine wants to move forward, like he doesn't want to stay stuck, and that's a healthy it's a healthy urge to want to move forward. However, are you trying to do that like prematurely before you've actually like processed the material? And a lot of times the answer is yes, and we all do that, like men and women. We all want to move forward with life and get on to the good stuff, but have we really like allowed ourselves to really like get the juice out of the experiences that we're having in the present moment? And that's a part of like integrating life, you know, in general, is like it's integrating everything as we go and not leaving anything out and not like neglecting anything or making anything taboo, because the second we do that, we keep that part of ourselves like trapped there. We, you know, we deny that part of ourselves and it stays stuck back in that moment when you called it taboo, and that will just, it'll stay there for as long as you keep denying it. It really, that's like how the emotions work. And so I'm happy that I'm coming to a place where like I'm not willing to deny my emotions anymore, and I want that my emotions to be part of my Christian path and not like a hindrance to my Christian path, if that makes sense. So I hope I was like somewhat articulate today. I hope you guys got something out of this. I don't think it only applies to people who've experienced trauma, but I think it can apply to all emotional experiences and anything that like comes up for us on our path. I think it's always good to be able to process like anything that arises. So hope you guys got something out of that today and maybe learned some new things about me and my journey, and look forward to talking to you soon. Bye-bye.